Hello, lovelies. Holly Hope here with the Beauty Perspective. And today I wanted to share just a little bit about ADHD in the spiritual community. So it's very interesting because the more spiritual we get, the more it seems that we squirrel out, or we'll be in the middle of a conversation and information will come through and we find that we start doing things like interrupting a lot more, and it seems that we can't focus. And if we were to look at the archetype or the stereotypical way that somebody who is spiritual is traditionally looked at in the community, often they're people who can't really focus, who are inefficient, and who are all over the place and have all these ideas and all these things coming through. Well, a lot of that is because what we don't realize is happening is the more open we make ourselves, the more we allow information to come through, the more we pick up on extra information. So it's not a matter of an inability to focus. It's more of an inability to recognize how much input is actually coming in. So we define an empath or a highly sensitive person by the ability to pick up and perceive on that which is not spoken or seen. So walking into a room and experiencing the mood of the room, whether people are in a bad mood or a good mood. That's probably the most basic way that we can describe that sensation, where you're actually picking up on these energetic signatures, this information coming in from not just other people's minds and consciousness, but also the unspoken things. Maybe you're more of a physically sensitive, so if somebody's having a stomach ache, suddenly you'll have a stomach ache as well. So here you are in your own body, your own mindset, your own experiences, and then suddenly you have the influence of another coming in, giving you a stomach ache. So now that stomach ache is taking a portion of your awareness to your own physical body, which is actually somebody else's experience and probably related to whatever they're speaking about. So it becomes a circle of information. So a lot of times we can get overwhelmed because we're actually receiving information from so many different sources all at once that we stop trusting ourselves, that we stop paying attention to what is tangible 3D reality, what is 4D, which is the things that are sensed, and what is 5D, which is the acceptance of all those things. And so then we get stuck in feeling this confusion and this lack of focus simply because we're getting so much input. So a really good way that I've found to shift that is when I'm engaged with someone, I don't have my phone going off and I don't even look at it, because even in looking at somebody texting me, then what happens is that tends to pull my consciousness and my awareness to that person and still try and be with the person that's in front of me. So now I've split my attention. And the more we do things like that, the harder it is to focus our attention on one specific person or one specific focus. And so instead we get used to having that split. Something really similar is, I remember when my kids were younger, because now they're all grown, but when they were younger, we would have dinner together and it would be me and my 3 children. And kid you not, every single time one of them would start to share, another would decide that they need to share at the exact same time. So I'd literally have 2 to 3 conversations going on at the same time. And at the time I used to say, it's okay because I can do that. Because what I would actually be doing is I'd listen here and then jump here, listen here, and then jump here and listen here, and then jump here and listen there. And I'm simultaneously jumping. What I didn't realize at the time is it kept me from being able to fully embody all of the sensations and information that was coming through. So as my daughter would be sharing about her things, I wasn't picking up on the stomach ache that she was feeling. I wasn't picking up on what was in between the things that she was saying that I could perceive and get more information on. So I knew how she needed a response and how she needed to be nurtured through that moment or celebrated in that moment. Or when my son was sharing something on at the same time, if I was feeling everything she was feeling, then he was only getting a fragment of my intention, which meant that he was only getting particles of me, and it left me feeling split into pieces. Now, my mind told me that I was being efficient, that in the same chunk of time, I was having 2 different conversations and I was able to be present. But what I didn't realize is how much information was being lost, and I was getting the Cliff Notes version versus the full experience of communication. And so if you find that you're in those bubbles where you're like, man, I just can't focus because I'm here and then I'm here and then I'm here, pay attention to what is the highest purpose in that moment. For me, that's always the person in front of me. I would rather give everything to the person right in front of me, even if whatever we're talking about or experiencing isn't as big as of a deal as maybe what somebody's texting me that's in crisis. But I want to give my presence to where it is already shown up in front of me. And then once that is complete, then I can pick up my phone and I can give full presence to the person who's in crisis. And then they're not going to get a split version of me. Now, this takes practice and it does take discipline. Another thing that I love to do is if I'm feeling like there's a lot of information coming in, for example, when we do our sacred ceremonies where we have multiple people and I'm talking to multiple people's spirit guides, sometimes that's a lot of input all at once. You have spirit guides that love to joke. You have spirit guides that swear like sailors. You have spirit guides that are very soft and very gentle. And some of those energies can overpower each other, just like if you were in a room with a conversation of a bunch of different personalities. And which one gets your attention? Which one are you going to perceive? So for me, setting that intent of, okay, we're tuning in for this person right now. Everybody else go quiet. And I'll even say that to the guides. Everybody else gets to go quiet because we're here for this person. And then after tuning in for that person, then we can say, okay, is there somebody else who has something similar that the guides need to come forward, like another guide needs to come forward? And then I can pivot my attention there. Now, this doesn't mean that with that structure, there aren't going to be times where I'm here and then bing, I'm yanked over here. And sometimes the yanked over here is because there's something that's impactful for every single one of them. And so it becomes this dance of where does my focus need to be? But the first step is allowing the permission to not shame ourselves or think that we're ineffective or our spiritual gifts are less than anybody else's, or our ability to communicate with spirit and communicate in the way we communicate is any less important. Because if we allow ourselves to go into the space of shame, then we allow ourselves to have that self-doubt, which means everything shuts down. It means that anything that comes through, we second guess so much that most often the opportunity to share goes away before we are brave enough to speak up. Another thing that really helps me, and a lot of you have recognized this, is I love scarves on my crown. So anciently, in the sacred temples, women would veil their heads and their faces. Now, patriarchy came out and said, oh yes, women, veil yourselves, shield yourselves, hide yourselves, because you're distracting our men, because your beauty is going to throw things off, because we are the men and we need to be here and be present and you don't need to speak at this time. So by veiling you, you shut up. Okay, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it actually created this context of hide yourselves. That's not why we do it. When I shield myself, I'm not hiding from anything. In fact, I am the strongest and the most potent. I am allowing myself to be unhinged and unbridled and fully open. Now, by veiling ourselves, even if that's just cloaking your crown, or if it is cloaking your whole face, what that's doing is it's allowing you to be in control of the outward influences. When you cloak your whole face, it actually allows you to forget everything that's in the room around you and to go really deep within. So a lot of people who teach meditation teach to cloak yourself. I mean, close your eyes is great, but when you can veil yourself, then you can allow your eyes to have soft focus. And sometimes if you're working on visions and being able to see things while you're awake, you can actually do that in a space with your head veiled and your eyes in soft focus. And there's not necessarily an object that you're focusing on, but your eyes are open and you can see colors and shapes and the energies move through. It's also allowing the space when we cloak ourselves to keep our information flowing through to be that which we choose. So for me, it quiets out the mind chatter. My body receives a signal that we are tuning in and we are channeling now. So when my body receives that signal, it's automatically going to focus on whatever I'm focused on to get information from. So a spirit's talking over here, or a spirit's talking over here, or somebody's energy is really loud over here and blasting. That all gets quiet because I put on my hat and saying I am tuning in now, and I'm no longer going to receive information until I ask for it. This is also very symbolic of the witch's hat, right? Where we have that point that's diving up and connecting to divine spirit. And it's in a funnel shape because it's allowing that information, very pinpoint, very precise, to come in and flood down into our being. And so this can allow some of the focus. So if you're finding that your spiritual gifts are turning into this ADHD, ADD space where you can't seem to focus and you feel like you're all over the place, you can use an object on your head that can help you to go, okay, this is when I go into my ceremony. This is when I go into my space. I'll also have times when we do the deep womb healing ceremonies or the retreats that I will tie a scarf around my waist. And that protects my womb space from pulling things in, because the womb is an empty bag waiting for things to be implanted so that it can grow and create. And so that's where a lot of times these deep healings that we have, especially when it comes to healing, supporting people in healing their sexual trauma, they can tend to inject themselves into our own womb space, and we can develop disease and this uneasiness within our body because we're holding their frequency within our womb space. So by allowing ourselves to shield ourselves there, it can keep that quiet so that we're not focused on our own sexual experience and our own sexual traumas, but we're able to focus on the person in front of us. And again, this is all a skill. So if you feel like you're not quite there yet, don't be hard on yourself. Just start practicing, start exploring, start experimenting, see what works and what doesn't work. Because one way is not the same for everyone, because we don't receive information from spirit the same. We don't talk to spirits the same. Even though on the outside it seems like we do, it is a very unique process specifically for us. And so allowing ourselves to have these little tools that can help us to learn the skill of deciphering what is for us and what is not. Now, if you feel like you want to learn more, I do have a free course of aligning your spiritual gifts on my website, thebeautyperspective.com, or we can go super deep and you can explore the intensive immersive training experiences where all of this comes through. We dive into your gifts and I hold your hand as you activate your own unique spiritual gifts. I'm Holly Hope. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the beautiful information flowing through.